Now, the problem now is we have about less than 40 minutes originally allotted to our discussion portion of our meeting now. I was wondering if we can have a little more time, if the organizers think that there's no overlapping with another session that is going to come soon thereafter, after we leave. So if there is time, we could extend it, of course, subject to the convenience of the organizers. But I think we'll have to keep in mind we have less than half an hour now. So I will give the floor to the first discussant on the panel now. This is Dr. Chang-Youl. Try to be as brief as you can, but I think the point is very well taken by the speakers, that the law as we know under the 1982 convention has not been too helpful in sorting out the issues concerning how to conduct research when there is no clear delimitation and demarcation of the maritime boundaries and the legislative, national legislative operational area. However, the second problem is about the distinguishing what is pure research from resource-based or otherwise military-based military research. And I think if some of these things are, and none of the discussions so far, either today we have heard or otherwise I have seen earlier over a period of time, have really put any clarification on these matters. And things are getting more complicated only because the instrumentalities by which research is conducted and the political motivations with which some of these things are done for purposes of accepting titles in a competing area, in an area of competing jurisdictions and competing titles, have complicated the issues. So if one, I will just leave this one thought so that the discussion can also focus on it if possible. Could we ask the powers in the region, states in the region, to have a code of conduct like they were trying to do for South China Sea issues, etc. Say that whatever activities we undertake in terms of marine scientific research, no matter who does it and what the purpose of the object is, they will not be taken as a basis for claiming a territorial and jurisdiction over a particular area, and those will be separate and independent, and any research conducted by any party, as long as it is publishable, as long as it is basic research, and as long as it is useful, either for climate change or even for security purposes, should not be treated as an activity that would go into a title assertion evidence. So can they have a code of conduct like that so that you can have a little more freedom and little less tension about who is doing what for what purposes? I leave the thought with you, and I'll ask Dr. Lee to take the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, good afternoon. I'm Chang-Youl from ICLS. First, I would like to say a word of gratitude to the organizers for giving me this opportunity to join this conference today. And I appreciate previous three speakers' presentations. Marine scientific research in the above claims areas is a sensitive topic to all states since it has been used for scientific activities and as well as economic and military and shipping activities. So if we talk about cooperation on marine scientific research, we have to address a number of other related issues. Three speakers already touched the main legal matters concerning the marine scientific research of the UNCLOS. Thus, our focusing mostly on the way of cooperation. In the negotiation process, the most important thing is to have common understanding to the user terms. Regarding the topic in this session, the first term is overlapping claims areas, and second term is marine scientific research. It's essential that the disputed parties have an equal understanding of these two keywords. Listening to the three presentators, I can derive common regional cooperation methods for marine scientific research in the developing claims areas. They are also emphasizing the need of same understanding of the terms of marine scientific research in developing claims areas. In a word, the state must have the same position on the legal status of marine scientific research under the UNCLOS and agree on the scope of developing claims areas for real regional cooperation for marine scientific research in Northeast Asia. It's very important, but not easy for developing claims area because deciding the scope of overlapping claims area is related to maritime delimitation. It would be a power of making a boundary. I just have initial thought about this issue. When you talk about the overlapping claims areas, especially where distance between disputed parties is less than 400 nautical miles, we should not claim that we have sovereign right and jurisdiction from our baseline to 200 nautical miles into the UNCLOS. I guess we should not say like that. At least we have to argue our positions on the basis of their reasonable grounds, like a Discussant method. And then next, confidence building measures is also crucial for regional cooperation. As other experts mentioned in their presentation, securing procedural transparency and sharing of data and information from MSR are likely to be practical means to this end. Now, I would like to ask one question to Dr. Min-Chul in relation to his presentation. You suggested three approaches to go forward cooperation in Northeast Asia. Basically, I totally agree with you, but if we implement a linear or journal approach, you said, we have to make an arrangement of the provisional boundary line or the limit of the overlapping claims areas between disputed parties. So if any, could you share your practical ideas to establish them? I mean, your suggestions in order to decide a provisional line or the range of overlapping claims areas between disputed parties in the rear. And I've got one quick question to Professor Hoo-Suk Young. I understand that you distinguish between marine scientific research activities and exploring activities. And can I ask your opinion about the marine bioprospecting? Can we say that bioprospecting is not a type of MSR? Because someone said that bioprospecting is belong to the type of exploring activities. So that is my question. And I have also some questions to Dr. Nong Hong. First, thank you for a number of information and views regarding the Chinese domestic regulations and practice on marine scientific research. Is very helpful to me. I guess Korea is trying to restrain the exercise of their jurisdiction in the sensitive maritime areas, including marine scientific research activities, in a spirit of understanding and cooperation. I'm not sure, but the legal position of my government regarding this topic is likely to be the same with the judicial precedent. In this connection, I would like to ask you, what is Chinese practice about their marine scientific research activities in the overlapping claims areas? I'm meaning whether China positively exercises MSR activities in their overlapping claims areas. If so, what kinds of MSR activities China is conducting unilateral in the overlapping Korean areas. And I also wonder whether China strictly regulate their MSR activities by other dispute parties in the overlapping Korean area. If China do, what types of other parties MSR activities China prohibit in the overlapping Korean areas? I stop here and thank you for your attention.
Dr. Rao, I think the audio is not working. Can you hear me?
Thank you very much for that presentation as a first discussant. Let me give the floor quickly to the second discussant also, so that the speakers can, when they come back to answer some of these questions or present their own thoughts, can take both questions together if possible. Sometimes they may be overlapping also. So for lack of time, I would give the floor immediately to Dr. Lee Ki Beom. Please have the floor and give us your presentation a little bit for the discussion purpose.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much for all the speakers' excellent presentations. First of all, it's my honor to be here, so I would like to express my gratitude to the Korean Society of International Law and Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Republic of Korea. Throughout today's presentations, we can more deeply understand the regime of MSR under the UNCLOS and the importance of cooperation among Northeast Asian countries with respect to conducting MSR activities. Actually, sorry for my mixing my comments and my questions. Actually, I think so any speaker can answer the questions. First question, first comment, I think we could worry about some disguised MSR activities. I mean, some activities could in fact be disguised, categorized as disguised MSR activities. For example, activities for exploration or exploitation. But actually, already Dr. Nong already touched on this tricky question, but just a question, how can we, nevertheless, how can we categorize activities in question as MSR or other activities? Exactly, because the question is very important, because in the area of MSR, the real issue, I think we have two real issues. The first real issue is which rules under the UNCLOS shall be applied each activity. I mean, for one MSR activity, definitely we can apply the activity. The activity can be regulated by part 13 of the UNCLOS. But other activities, I mean hydrographic activities or military survey, we can apply another rules to that military activity, military survey or hydrographic survey. And the second real issue is, I think, some speakers could just touch on, but just the second real issue is whether or not compulsory procedures provided by Part 15 can be applied. For example, we have to pay attention to Article 297, especially limitations to Section 2. For example, Article 297, paragraph 2A1, exercise just a little bit. If I have read the text, disputes concerning the interpretation or application of the provisions of this convention with regard to MSR shall be settled in accordance with Section 2, except that coastal state blah blah to such settlement of any dispute arising out of 1. The exercise by the coastal state of right or discretion in accordance with Article 246. That means, yes, under the regime of MSR, I mean in the UNCLOS, we could regulate MSR activities, but another fact is in the context of applying compulsory procedures. MSR activities, especially in the exclusive economic zone, could it be we have some limitations to the application of Section 2, Part 15? Yeah, and one more thing, yes, Dr. Min-Chul Kim stressed on, and Professor Soo-Kyun-ho also stressed this kind of obligation of self-restraint provided by Article 74 or 83 paragraph of the UNCLOS. Yes, I think that obligation is a fundamental obligation in undelimited maritime areas. Obligation of self-restraint or the obligation not to jeopardize or hamper. Yeah, but I have a little bit different view because even a pure MSR activity, I think can be regarded as the violation of the obligation in a given case. Yeah, according to the separate opinion of Judge Peg in the 2017 Ghana Cote d'Ivoire case, he really stressed the obligations, the importance of the obligation of self-restraint, and several factors may be regarded. Yeah, I totally agree with Judge Peck's separate opinion. So I think the fundamental obligation is obligation of self-restraint. So if some speaker could answer the question, and just because of lack of time, just specific questions for Japanese position and Chinese position. We are talking about MSR activities in undelimited overlapping maritime areas. So what is the exact position of Chinese or Japanese position regarding unilateral MSR activities in undelimited maritime areas? Professor Soo-Kyun-ho already touched no provisions in the case of undelimited maritime areas. But just a question: if a Korean research vessel is conducting MSR activities in undelimited maritime areas with between Korea and Japan or Korea and China, the two states could accept Korean vessels research activities as just pure MSR activities or challenging? Yeah, just my question. And
Can I ask you now to conclude, because there is very little time left for the speakers to answer the questions.
Yeah. So I think because of lack of time, I'm finishing my questions and comments. Thank you very much.
No, it's a pity that we didn't have enough time to move on with many issues.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
I think one more question. So for Dr. Nong, yeah. Just recently I heard China last month in November made a draft. I think, do you know? So China made a draft domestic act regarding the use of force by Chinese coastal guards. Do you think Chinese coastal guards could use force to refrain from other countries' disguised MSR activities in undelimited maritime areas? And one more thing, just in the case of South China Sea, yeah, we know China and ASEAN countries are making a COC, a code of conduct. In the code of conduct, do you expect some articles regarding MSR as confidence building measures could be included in the COC or not? Just I have a question about your expectation. Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah.
I will give the floor to the speakers in the order in which they took the floor earlier. That is, I will give the floor first to Dr. Kim, and then of course Ho, then of course Hong. Take your time as quickly as possible. We don't want to answer all the questions. It's quite all right because there will be, we will have to think through these things with more time at our disposal, which we don't have at the moment. Dr. Kim, you have the floor. And take 3 minutes or 4 minutes so that I can give the floor to the others also.
Thank you for the insightful question and comments. In fact, the other day I had an opportunity to talk with today's discussant regarding the topic that I had presented today. In this regard, once again, I appreciate Dr. Chang-Youl Lee and Dr. Ki-Bum Lee for their intriguing comments and question. First, let me answer Dr. Chang-Youl Lee's question regarding the practical idea of drawing a provisional line or establishing a zone for a modest event. As I explained in my presentation, I thought of a linear approach as possible solution, but actually, I think this approach would not be successful in Northeast Asia because I doubt that China, Japan, and Korea can agree on clear provisional line due to some issues over title to island, conflicting views on maritime delimitation and baselines, etc. Then next, I thought of a zonal approach. In this option, one may question how to set up such a zone specifically. In this regard, theoretically, such zone can be established in areas of overlapping claims. That means intersections between two lines of national claims. So I think such zones can give a starting point, but a broader areas encompassing these intersections is also useful. We already have many similar settings of bilateral fishery agreements in this region. In this regard, I believe the zonal approach is better than the linear approach because MSR and the concept of national jurisdiction can be separate under this approach. In addition, in my opinion, states can use international institution for MSR cooperation. This option is consistent with the convention, the article of UNCLOS, especially articles 242, 247, and 123. One positive side of this option is that states can cooperate while maintaining their claim to national jurisdiction, even in unlimited waters. So I suppose the zonal option and the international organization option are recommendable and doable in this region. And regarding the Dr. Gibbon Ree's question or comments, yes. I'd like to answer the question about the self-restraint obligation. Frankly speaking, I think our whole story on this topic is too big to address within such limited time. But briefly speaking, regarding my assessment that pure MSR activities for peaceful purposes is not likely to violate the self-restraint obligation. This assessment described a general direction despite some limitation. As mentioned before, there is no single criterion that should be applied in assessing the legality of unilateral activities in unlimited waters. That's right. But I've tried to draw guidelines as far as possible. Maybe I think Dr. Gibbon Lee is concerned about the.
I'm afraid we are running out of time. Huh?
Yeah, okay, unilateral activities.
We have to move.
Yeah.
I would like to give this floor to the other two speakers also, but let's see how much time the organizers are able to give us. But be brief, please. Now I think unfortunately we are overshooting the time. Yeah. Go ahead, complete the sentence. Huh?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, yeah. I understand some concerns associated unilateral MSR within unlimited waters. In this respect, let me further clarify my suggestion about how to draw a guideline for this matter. Now, in practice, I had a similar question like Dr. Lee, but as I mentioned before, if we go back to the original spirit of MSR, we may discover a more legalistic nature of pure MSR. So my intention behind this assessment focused on enlightening the original nature of MSR. Yes. Yeah, I stop here. Thank you.
Next speaker, please take the floor, Dr. Hong.
Thank you, Chair. I think our two discussants raised very good comment, a very challenging question. I'm going to start from the easy one. The first question raised by Dr. Lee Chang-Youl about Chinese MSR in another country's EEZ. So in 2019, China just issued a regulation of regulating its own MSR conducted in a foreign country's EEZ. There was pretty comprehensive provision regulating our own MSR activities. And the second question, overlapping area, that's the most tricky one. And there was a hypothetical question about whether South Korea need permission in the area where China and Japan have overlapping camp. This is really a highly hypothetical question because in the open levy area between China, for instance, between China and then Japan, and since it is like a pending delimitation, and then whose jurisdiction, the first important thing. And then if a country like South Korea wants to conduct MSR in these areas, and the concern region will come from China or Japan. This is a hypothetical and very, very challenging question. I think the best option is that to create a regional cooperation regime, putting aside all these maritime delimitation issue aside, and then go forward for the joint MSR activity. And then another question I think raised about how to differentiate MSR and other activities. I think there's something which has been done by many scholars who are concerned about military activity regime and military survey. The effort I'm talking about is the guidelines, the first guidelines in issuing 2009 and revised again in 2013. It's about the legitimacy of military activities in the foreign countries. There was 2 guidelines, and which has been passed on by many of the legal scholars who are involved in negotiation discussion to the individual government. But so far, there's no like further development on these 2 guidelines. I think that's something we need to pick up given the difficulty of the issue that we're discussing today. And another question from Dr. Li Kianbo about use of force by Chinese new law on Coast Guard. I don't think that use of force will be the last resort, particular for MSR, which is for instance, for the purpose of marine scientific research. So the use of force will be the last resort, and for the issue that you just mentioned. And last question about the possibility of including MSR in a code of conduct negotiation in the South China Sea. I believe that environment protection, search and rescue, and fishery, and also marine scientific research will be included in the negotiation of code of conduct, if I understand correctly, from the 2002 Declaration of Conduct. All those issues, including MSRs, included in the discussion. And I also look forward that we will be able to see a very comprehensive and mature regime on regulating MSR and overlapping areas as we have been discussing today. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much for your quick uptake on the matters, and I much appreciate the very sharpness with which you presented your points. I think we have only 5 minutes, less than 5 minutes left now, and it's my duty to put an overview of the matter as quickly as I can. I'm going to miss a lot of interesting things which I wanted to say, but let me first of all thank each one of you for the excellent research you have done. And the emphasis in all your statements is, given the overlapping nature of claims which are unresolved, compulsory settlement certainly not going to be the answer because of lack of clarity in the content of the law on the principles on the basis of which the dispute settlement would be done. Because a dispute settlement would be useful if the law is clear and the parties have agreed on the basic provisions of how it operates. And if there is difficulty about that, going to compulsory settlement is substituting the wisdom of 3 or 4 people or 5 people to the wisdom of the great number of people concerned about it on a day-to-day basis. And therefore, compulsory settlement should be the last resort and should not be the first resort in matters where things are not clear. That's very clear. Next point is, the issues of the law of the sea as it developed in 1982 certainly have no relevance to the current issues, because at that time it was a package deal that consent regime was agreed, but then with the restrictions that they would yield to in the normal circumstances to research rather than prevent it in return to their claiming their sovereignty. Where it is clearly a research concerning the resources and the rights of the particular zone, which the sovereign rights of the particular zone of the particular coastal state, of course the consent regime operates differently. But where it is pure scientific research in the sense that it is not, even if it is going to have a certain borderline with resources, as long as it is not pure research oriented, resource exploration, exploitation oriented research, it should be allowed for the benefit of mankind, because basically, as I mentioned, oceans constitute the largest part of the earth, and it is the source of not only life originally, as we came on as we know, the life originated from the oceans, and then now all the problems of the planet are now either gravitating to the oceans or otherwise emanating from that oceans. And therefore, it is important that we must put our heads together. And first of all, each of these countries in the region must have a national oceanographic institution of their own, manned by important scientific personnel, and their activities must be guarded without any political overtones as far as possible. And the basic research, and then they should compete with the best institutions in the world like Woodstoll, Loyola, Scripps, and then many other, there are 5, 6, 7 in my days, only institutions of research. Now there are almost every big country has a research national oceanographic institution. They should meet more often together. Particularly the national oceanographic institutions of the region must meet more often and then prepare joint programs of research as to what would be the most important research they would like to conduct in the very particular area, given the resource depletion, rise of sea levels, and also the other pollution matters that are otherwise identified as important for us. If we take this programmatic and prioritizing our researches in the as a matter of discussion among the scientists, and then the scientists come together to say, we want to do this research, the states must yield to them as long as it is not bordering on their security, as long as it's not bordering on their titles to territorial issues. And I think we can have a code of conduct that as any scientific research done by anybody should not be used as a basis for claiming a resource jurisdiction, which is if it is in contention. If we have a code of conduct like that, if scientists are put in the front yard and as the first responders, and if they have a program of action to work together, not only in the region, but with the best of the best institutions in the world, and the International Oceanographic Commission continuously is asked to review these matters on a global scale to develop some trends in promoting pure basic research of the oceans, we will be better served. I think we should be thinking on those lines, and I hope each one of you will now take your further thinking on this matter, articulate. Of course, each one of you have brought in the regime as it existed and problems it is created. But I think given that, think all innovative ways in which we can promote cooperation and make us more, because we're an interdependent world, and we, particularly in Asia, we have to do this, the coming together as one unit, like Europe did and like America does up to a point. I think we'll have to, particularly in the region where you are, that is Korea, China, and Japan. All of you are well resourced and highly, the economically highly developed, and our institutions are extraordinarily valuable institutions for not only for you, for all of us. And I think a cooperative arrangement with the kind of resources we have and the minds we have, and believing that we are together in this, there is only one planet, and interdependency is now a factor. We cannot avoid this thing. Please put your minds together to promote those things as a basis and see where we can come together. I thank you very much for this opportunity. I know this has not given us enough time to really think through many of these difficult issues, but I think this is an opportunity for us to get inspired and keep working on this matter. And I expect each one of you, as younger people as you are, to come and be leaders in promoting a cooperative, interdependent, and highly scientific oriented research that will benefit all of us. Thank you very much, and I wish you, the conference organizers, the best, and I think I have enjoyed listening to each one of you. It's like going to school and then trying to learn once again what we are doing and not doing at all. Thank you very much. All the best to you.